This is episode 2 of Travis DuFour's podcast. Very creative name, I know. And what we've decided is that if you make it past one wrestling event or podcast in this situation, it is a success. And I'm just so happy to bring you episode 2 featuring a very, very good friend of mine, Simon Shadows, who is here with me right now. And Simon, how do you feel about just being on a podcast in general? Have you done this before?
Yeah, actually, my uncle has a podcast, and I went on once, and I talked about Jim Crockett Promotions, and I went on another time and talked about Bill Watts in Mid-South. So, I mean, it's really odd. It's a unique scenario to find.
Who's your uncle?
My uncle Sean.
He has a podcast.
Yeah, Thoughts of RS at like blogspot.com or something.
Okay.
He puts one up every so often, and they're not usually wrestling related, but he's a big sports fan, so I'll give him a quick shout out here while we get started. And a lot of cheap plugs coming your way today, Travis.
Well, damn. I thought that this was like a first time kind of thing for you. I'm sorry that this is actually podcast veteran Simon Shadows. It's very good to have you. You've been through this before.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's good to have you. And just to kick things off, what do you got coming up?
Absolutely nothing. Really, I'm actually getting ready to move to Cincinnati, and once I get settled in out there, I'm going to look into a couple schools out there, and I know Bobby Fulton does some stuff in Ohio, so hopefully within a couple months I'll be working at least a couple places out there.
You didn't run no retirement angle anywhere?
No, not at 24. It's still a little too early to start the retirement tour. I figure that's probably going to start at 26.
I remember a couple of years ago, I think it's been like 2 years, I was planning on moving myself, and first thing I started thinking about was how can I leave the area? Some injury angle, some career versus hair match, something like that. And I just remember I had this big chalice, I lost it to somebody, and then I just plans got canceled. Then we just switched it up in the booking.
See, now, if I was booking in that scenario, I would have had somebody stuff you into a crate and ship you to Milwaukee.
Okay.
That way, after you came back in 2 or 3 years, you went out there with no money. You had to fight your way back to the area so that you could compete and you could show that guy who was really the man in town.
Everybody loves a new gimmick. I'm just a fighter, man. So, Cincinnati, Ohio. How is the wrestling scene down there? Do you even know?
I know very little. I know that Ohio and Kentucky and Indiana somewhat are real hotbeds for a lot of independent wrestling.
Is there a commission out there? Do they govern that stuff?
Kentucky doesn't sound like a state that has a very strong athletic commission. I feel like it's probably very similar to North Carolina or West Virginia, where everything's kind of, self-policing because nobody wants to bother with it. Ohio, I'm pretty sure there is a commission. I think you do have to get licensed.
Now, a number of years ago, I was booked to wrestle in Akron, Ohio, and I think there was another event going on in Youngstown. I was going to do a double shot, and I believe, when we're talking 5-6 years ago, I don't believe that there was anything that I had to do before I went down there. But from my studying I was actually looking to move to Youngstown, Ohio years ago, and apparently there is a number of companies down there. And I think that there's even one that, they were booking, Seth Rollins and stuff before he got signed, Johnny Gargano, if you will. And Ohio, yeah, it's not a bad place to go, and you're not too far from OVW as well, aren't you?
I don't think so. I think that's still in Louisville.
Yeah,
that's
Louisville.
about an hour and a half. It'll be
From where you'll be.
Yeah,
okay.
It'll be unique because I want to go someplace and I want to work where nobody knows me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I've worked. I've been wrestling for about 6 years now. So, and I'm physically not quite big enough to have broken through. Plus, I've pissed a fair amount of people off. Because I'm a relatively outspoken guy. I can't help it. But to go out there and just kind of start over, and I know how to work. You know, so I mean, I don't have to, when I go out there, I'm not going to have to pay somebody to teach me how to bump. Nobody's going to have to teach me how to hit the ropes or how to apply holds. I've worked before. You know what I mean? So it's, I'm only 24, you know. And if you look at most of your great wrestlers, and really anybody who has succeeded at a high level, they make more money in their 30s than their 20s, because your 20s is supposed to be about when you can travel and when you can work and you can, because you have it because you're young. And that way, by the time you're 30 couple and you're ready for a legitimate chance at something, you're already seasoned enough to know what you like to do, what you don't like to do, and how, really, it's funny, you spend the first 10 years of your wrestling career doing everything, and then you spend like the last 15 doing nothing.
Right.
At one point it just shifts because you're like, wait, I've figured it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. If there is no reason for me to take the superplex, then I'm just not. If there's any way around taking like that huge bump, I'm just not going to do it.
I'll tell you what, man. The superplex isn't bad if you're the person giving the suplex.
Right.
It's not quite as bad. You know.
Yeah, I guess with age comes knowledge. I mean, that goes for any kind of business that you're in. And, well, I mean, there's only one thing that you can get out of this trip to Ohio, and that's even more experience. And like we were talking a couple days ago, and I know that you said that you want to see what you can do outside of your comfort zone. And your comfort zone is, like you got the SWA down the road, and you can work for them anytime. And, you got a couple companies that you can just come in whenever you want. And as a worker, and with the kind of creativity that we have, we kind of get stagnant with that. We kind of feel like, what else is there? You never want to feel like you've done as much as you can do. So going to Ohio is something that everybody should commend you for, because a lot of people don't have the balls to make a switch like that. So okay. What was your last match around here?
It was in November for the SWA. It was against Steve Sarks.
Okay, you and Steve. So you and Steve have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Together, working each other. And did you work him one-on-one?
Yeah.
Is there some kind of gimmick there? Or?
Yeah, I was Super Lucha.
You were Super Lucha?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's me in tap-out shorts and a Super Dragon mask, but more importantly, still the same boots. Okay. I'm a superhero, man. Like Batman. Anything else. Sometimes I wrestle in these places and I can't let people know that I'm there, but justice still needs to be served to some of these people, and we wrestled a good, 10-minute match. Barks is tough.
Who's going over there?
Oh, I did with
you did?
Yeah, with
the mask gimmick.
Officer Hatfield. Like I was talking about justice. Steve Sarks, he rolled out of the ring. He didn't want to fight. Hatfield rolled him in. He was distracted, and I schoolboyed the 350-pound man.
Okay, so he's working an angle with Hatfield.
Yeah.
So that's why it made sense for you to go over there.
Yeah.
Okay, and you did not work as Simon Shadows that night.
No, and afterwards, Sarks clotheslined me into the throat, as I couldn't see because I'm wearing this,
That's always pleasant.
I'm wearing this very gaudy mask, because he's going to attack me, and Hatfield's going to save the day, so they can continue their thing. And I went from having my hand raised by the referee to, feeling like somebody took a baseball bat and hit me in the throat with it.
And that was the last thing that happened. You didn't have a chance to get a receipt there.
No, no. Like, that's accidental.
Sure, I guess it could be considered.
Yeah.
Do you follow the 3-strike rule?
Not really.
No, the first time.
Look, man.
You see red.
Here's what it is. Is that usually you can look at somebody's face and you can look in somebody's eyes when they're coming up to you, and you can tell whether or not they're hitting you to be a dick.
Yeah.
Or because they don't know.
Yeah.
And
even whenever you're in the back going over what you're trying to accomplish there, you can kind of tell this guy's going to take liberties on me.
Yeah, look, man, I'm anybody who really knows me knows that I'm a fairly reactionary person.
Yeah.
And when somebody really hits me, it makes me mad because of the idea that, okay, we're in here, we're working together, and a lot of times when I'm working with some guys, like, I'll give them spots where I'll be like, hey, maybe you could power slam me. I'm a small guy. If you want to pick me up and drop me, that's fine. You know, it'll be great and it'll get over. But um,
Clotheslining you in the throat, that's
yeah.
not okay.
Well, it is. Because he clotheslined me in the throat, and that was an accident.
Right.
But if he would have got me in the corner and been like, hey, and he chopped me, and he looked at everybody and went, huh? And he chopped me again. Well, before he could chop me, I'm probably going to kick him in the stomach and chop him. And then he can cut me off and we can go back to it. Because we don't have to get into a fight. But it's, nothing upsets me more than people who hit people and then flinch up or cover up when someone goes to hit them back. If you like to work stiff, that's cool. We can work stiff. I'm not overly excited about it, but it's wrestling. I'll be fine.
Right.
But if you're just out here and you look at your mom in the front row and you're excited and you forearm me in the nose, well, I'm probably going to kick you in the dick when you come back around.
Exactly.
Because,
See, I'm not going to name any names, but the only time that I specifically remember that I tell random people and talking like they're outside of the business, there was a time where this dude backed me into the corner. He ended up, the first chop he threw, he hit me right in the throat. So it all depends. I try to go by the 3-strike rule, but if you hit me right in the throat right off the get-go, there's going to be a chance that I'm going to do something to you. And I'd say about a minute later in the match, he was working up from I had him down for something, and he was working up, and I ended up booting him right in the face. And I said, whoops, and it's just, I don't know. I've tried to think of like the perfect way to retaliate against somebody in the ring, but there's a certain amount of respect that comes along with wrestling. So whenever you do go out of your way, and it might be an accident, but I don't know. I don't know what the best.
You can tell. You really can, because of a lot of times it's not always overt aggression.
Yeah.
It's not always somebody trying to shoot a double leg, but it's things that you have to keep in mind are like, if somebody if me and you are working one-on-one, and every spot that I've called in the back is a spot where I'm going to be bumping you, and I'm going to whip you, and I'm going to backdrop you, and I'm going to whip you, and I'm going to give you a power slam, and I'm going to give you a back elbow, and then I'm going to drop an elbow off the top rope, and if I've called the match like that, and then in the opening I back you into the corner and I start hitting you, odds are really good I have no respect for you, and I'm going to hit you until because see, the thing is you don't even need to knock a guy on his ass. All you got to do is tap a guy and they're like, all right. Or some guys just like to work stiff, like Rocky DeCola. At first I was like, man, what is his problem? But after
I have done something to upset this guy.
After a while I was like, okay, no, it's just how Rocky works, and you can hit Rocky. And it took me a while to figure out that there are some people who are just like that.
Yeah.
And it takes different styles to make wrestling interesting. And, you got to be diverse enough that you can work with a guy who's stiff without having to get it in. And you can assert yourself without having to just punch a guy in the face. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times it's as simple as how you call a match. Because if you see two guys calling a match and they're both talking and they're shooting ideas, and then you watch that match, odds are really good that at no point in that match are those two guys, or one of those guys just going to start hitting the other one for no reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you see a guy who's calling a match and it's 90-10, then it's like, oh, that poor kid. You know what I mean?
That's why, whenever you're breaking into the business, whenever you actually find the worker who's been around and actually creates a story with you that's 50-50, you have so much more appreciation for guys like that. And as I get older, any chance that I get to, with Chris Gatton, his first match he ever had was against me. And I knew it was his first match. I didn't just guzzle him the whole match, It was very much so 50-50. Your first match you ever had, do you remember it being like that? Did you get some of your stuff in, or was it just...
My first match is a unique instance, I reffed, okay? I gotta give you a little bit of backstory here. I reffed my first match when I was 13.
13.
Yeah. My dad set up this thing.
Was there a no-show or something, or?
No. My dad set up this thing at the car dealership here in Hagerstown at Hamilton Nissan, and they're gonna do a wrestling commercial. You know, because they did like those half-hour infomercials, and the match was gonna be broken up into like 3 parts. You know, and in the middle it was gonna be like the new Corolla and this and that, and they were gonna be like, we've got these cars. You know, just some sales stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and it was my dad and Dave the Dealmaker. You know, which I thought was great because the guy wasn't a wrestling fan. But even before we had the wrestling thing, he was Dave the Dealmaker. That's just who he was.
So he had a gimmick. He wasn't even in the business.
And they took on the Bad Deal Boys, which was Jackpot Jimmy Jessup and Jerkface under hoods. And they had these cut off sleeveless shirts that said "Bad and Deal." You know, it was great, and it was we got like Dad and Jackpot locked up, and Jackpot backed my dad into the ropes, and I was very slow getting over there because I was very nervous because I had never really had any training outside of a handful of conversations, and so like after like a good couple seconds, I go over there and count, and I get to 3 and they break, and my dad looks at me and he says, "Okay, you're gonna get your head out of your ass," and I was off, you know. And then, like, I think the first match that I actually reffed at a show.
That's really interesting because your first experience wasn't even at an event. Like, first, like, you actually doing stuff.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of people, there's not a lot of people that happens to.
That's true. There's also, you know, the first time I ever did anything as far as in front of a crowd at a wrestling show, I was like 13, and it was at Riverbend.
Okay.
Because you got hurt somehow.
You were 13?
I was.
How old am I? I'm 28. How old are you?
24.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay, but see, it's... I don't know, man. It's a weird thing because the first time I met you, I was 12, and you were 16. And I want to say it was in Moorfield or Kaiser when you, like, started training.
I started training at 18.
Was it 18?
So you were 14.
So it would have been 14. Maybe. Are you sure you weren't a little bit younger than that?
No. So I graduated military school. The first thing I did at 18 years old. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to trade school. I went to wrestling school.
What month's your birthday?
May 29th.
Okay. Oh, so you're practically 5 years older than me.
Yeah.
But that makes a little more sense. Like a lot of my like 8 to 14 just runs together in my head. So because like as far as wrestling goes, because I've been to so many wrestling shows and wrestling events and met so many different people that the sequence of things is all out of order.
Well, hold on. Now, what you were just saying, I was ring announcing at the time. Did you take that job? Were you a ring announcer that night?
Yeah, I was. I was because...
How do you feel about ring announcing?
It was all right.
Dude, I loved it.
Like
you put me in front of a crowd, give me a microphone. I love that shit.
Well, it had rained because if you remember, they always set the ring up in the field.
Yeah.
And it rained that day, so we did it
Outside
up in
shows.
the parking lot.
Okay.
You know, because everyone was getting changed in like the pool room and stuff like that. And
was the ring still out in the open in like the rain?
Yeah.
Oh God, that
because
sucks.
I remember Jake Davis versus the Patriot. My Shane Shadows versus Mike Raddick was the opener.
Wonderful.
And who did Leslie Leatherman work?
Bill Bain.
No.
Gino Sammartino. I'm almost there. Richie Stevens. Brian Johnson. No, I'm just going to keep naming people.
Oh, man. Anybody who's interested in a unique point in time should go on YouTube and just search CPW Showdown.
Dude, it was like a band of misfits. Just looking at that roster, it was such a diverse roster and a good roster.
It was, but you know, I mean, it's one of those things that when I was a kid, I didn't realize how how different everybody was, and a lot of those guys worked really well together, because I remember, like, you remember Damage Inc., right?
Yeah.
Slayer and Nasty.
This guy's legitimately I don't know if they were trying to work me over because I was in training at the time, but like they wanted me to believe that they could kick anybody's ass at any moment. And okay, the shorter guy from Damage Inc., I believed it from him, but the other like taller guy, and both these guys were fat, all due respect, but they were fat. And the other guy, do you remember how his voice was? I don't know, man. Not very intimidating.
Yeah, but I mean they were Philly guys.
Yeah,
I know.
you got to wonder where half these guys even come from, and I've never seen them since.
No, like they're up in like the Reading area, I think. I saw because like it was them, Richie Stevens, and Warlock were the guys from around Philly who would drive down for those cards.
Warlock was a cool dude, just talking to him. But do you ever wish that that maybe you were a couple years older so you could have actually worked on those cards? Like, I mean, like you got Leslie as the champion.
No, and here's why.
Why?
Because all those guys, everybody there was big. I mean, you remember like Bill Vane, who was, it wasn't as big as he is now, but he was starting to get bigger. But I mean,
Hijinks isn't a small guy. Like none of those guys.
Like if I was working on those cards, man, I'd probably be eaten alive.
If you saw any guys that came in for a tryout for the company, like Mike Raddick's buddy that trained with him, he had like lightning bolts on his
Kid Rage?
Yeah, Kid Rage. He came down for a tryout match. He just got eaten alive. So if you were a small dude, and
because I mean that was the style that and that's what made a lot of those cards good is that it was a lot of big stiff guys,
that sounds horrible though, you saying it like that.
Well, yeah, I mean when you phrase it like that. But yeah, I mean because Griffin came in after a while, because that was like when I was a teenager, like on those independent cards, like I just fell in love with the Highwaymen. Like I loved them as a tag team because they I remember they worked a long little deal with my dad and Bobby Keller that I enjoyed, and that was right around the time when I was really starting to, really learn about wrestling and the business.
Which is a great time.
It really was.
I mean, because if you don't respect the Highwaymen, and everything that those two have done, something wrong with you. And Bobby Keller, he is responsible for, John Skyler, who's NXT, done all these things. Change Shadows speaks for itself,
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing, man. But after this big era of CPW, we now venture into the era where me and you and the Joey Landises of the world, we all kind of took CPW and made the roster. It was us and like our core group of guys that we were all training together, like the Jacob Youngs of the world and Chris Catton. And I mean, I think that era had a very good potential too, because if you look at pro wrestling, everybody wants to see the youth movement. They want to see like who's going to be like the next hot star and stuff like that. And you had so many of us young guys kind of trying to climb the ladder.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the stuff like, like the Petersburg card and the way the Big Bear cards have really, because those Big Bear cards, if we can talk about them for a minute, there's, there are 3 shots every summer they're like, it's like a camp, because it's a different world up there and it's always hot and the people are always hot.
If we could paint a picture for anybody who doesn't know what the Big Bear Lake Campgrounds is for Championship Pro Wrestling, it is exactly what he just said. It is a resort type place for, West Virginia
Yeah, but
people.
okay, let's be honest here. Using the word resort is being fairly nice. Like
I bet you they would view it as that. But
oh,
I
they
mean,
probably will. But it's like a campsite. And
yeah,
it
is a campsite.
It's a wooden building.
Yeah.
With a hot tin roof.
It's a very old building. Yeah.
And I mean the people are crazy, and I mean it's great because it's great to see people who still love wrestling and still want to get involved in stuff like that. But I know.
And it's the same people every year too. They love it.
I know, and I always enjoyed working with you up there when you had the gays thing because I could just sit back and listen to all the various obscenities coming your way.
It definitely pays off playing the role of a possibly gay wrestler. Yeah. But yeah, the Big Bear Lake, that's definitely a nice venue to have an extreme gimmick like that. But Big Bear Lake this year was a very good year.
It was.
And you worked every card for this year too, didn't you?
I did.
Now, and you worked your dad on one of them.
Yeah, that was the Labor Day card.
Labor Day card.
Yeah, because it's Memorial Day, that Sunday, so it's always like May 31st, and then it's Sunday on July 4th, which this year the 4th was that Monday, so everybody was up there, and then it's Labor Day in early September.
Do you remember the night that there was a tornado?
I do. That was.
I believe Kenny Craig was wrestling Shane
Oh
Shadows.
man, that whole day was crazy because my car broke down on the way up there. So it's me, my brother, the incomparable timekeeper, Mike Skills. You know, who for anyone who hasn't seen Mike Skills, he's like 6'2" and about 380, and Bill Bain in my beat-ass Buick, and we broke down, and then we got a ride there, and
who ended up helping you out that day?
We had to get picked up in shifts, because Kenny and Hoss picked up Joey and Skills. And me and Billy rode Malice and Jake.
Oh, okay.
And Ted the announcer.
Oh, nice.
Like they came and picked me and Billy up and took us up there because the tornado knocked down a tree in front of the exit gate, and Kenny wanted to drive over it in his Kia Soul because he had a family reunion to get to, and we ended up stopping for food, and the food took 45 minutes, so Kenny missed his family thing anyway.
I don't know why anybody would be excited about a family reunion.
You know who the best person to talk about that day is?
Who?
Is Landis, because he was in the ring with my dad when that happened.
Oh right, it was Landis for Shadows, yeah.
Yeah, and the power went out because and like it comes back on and Landis is standing in the ring not doing anything. And you see Dad just reach up and go whap and hit him right in the gut, and they're like they're back to working. All right.
And I always remember that because we always told Landis that whenever the lights went out, he should have fell straight to the ground, like grabbed his groin or grabbed his throat or something. Lights come back on. Shadows has done something heelish. There's been a total heel turn, something.
You know what else is funny about that is that after the lights came back on, you know they worked for about 5 more minutes, and Dad called home. And he dropped the bionic elbow, and Landis didn't buy that the bionic elbow was a finish. And he kicked out.
He kicked out.
And it's like you just see like that just shot him a look for a second, got up, whipped. There's the small package, 1, 2, 3. It's just like, oh, Landis, you kicked out of the man's finish. Because it's you know, and the sad thing is that you know. The tornado came over the mountain, but you know once it came onto Big Bear, it had to do the job to Shane. So
yeah,
everybody. But you know, Big Bear, those cards are so much fun, and yeah, I mean, I did wrestling. My dad was a fun experience, you know, because we worked for about 25 to 30 minutes, and we had
that's a long time in that hot ass building.
We had one spot called. I know. He ended up pouring beer all over me.
Now, did you guys have a finish in mind, or
no?
No.
No. I just knew at some point,
Knew who was going over.
Well, I don't think we never even talked about it because that was the.
You didn't talk about who's going over?
No, because we had an understanding.
Okay.
You know, because it was fun, and it was what it needed to be, because I always do better when I'm in a scenario where I'm challenged. And at this point, my dad is better off working somebody who's going to just kind of poke at him a little bit to get him to want to work. Because, and it's nothing personal against him, but at his age, if he's not buying it, he ain't buying it.
Right.
And you ain't going to make him buy it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I know, but see, the thing is too is that it's so easy because, unintentionally, truthfully, I work so much like my dad. The timing, we share a lot of that. Because I mean, I called him off on a couple spots. Because I wasn't feeling it. Like, I had told people for weeks he was gonna call that monkey flip. And I had been practicing for weeks, and he called it, and I went, no. Because, see, the thing, Travis, is that you can't, like, I've always found that you can't get stressed out about who you're working with.
Yeah.
And that might be something easy to say because it was my dad, but you have to, if you're going to work with somebody, you have to be able to look at them as something of an equal. And even if we're not equals when we're talking about wrestling or knowledge about wrestling, we're equals when we're in the ring, because you need me and I need you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was great. We brawled around, and like at one point I was like, there's a table behind me. So, he hit me and I went to fall on the table, and there wasn't a table.
There wasn't a
So
table?
I just fell backwards onto the floor. It was, but I mean, it was so much fun, And before that, on July 4th, I worked with Scott Shreve, and we worked a 20-minute deal that was, a lot of fun.
Now, if I could comment on the Shane match before you continue.
Yeah.
Going 25 to 30 minutes with Shane speaks volumes to me, because if a guy who's been working as long as Shane has don't like it, the match is going to go 5 to 10. You know what I'm saying? So going 25 to 30 with a guy like Shane, that's really cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it all plays in. There were so many different factors going into that, because, like, the first Big Bear card.
Yeah, you guys set it up.
Was right. Well, no, but the first Big Bear cards that had ever been done 10 years ago, I was reffing on them. So, and a lot of the same people come every year. So these are people who saw me referee, and then they saw me work as, the plucky underdog baby face. And then they saw,
They've seen you evolve.
They saw me and you, beat up dad, and so, and this summer was really, it was a great summer, because, I was as hot as anything, because, like, Memorial Day, I worked Gatton, and we worked a tag match. And then July 4th, I worked Scott Shreve, and we worked a 6-man, and that was the night after I ran that. Was that the last card the WWE ran, July 4th?
That I don't know.
It might have been.
I want to think that there was at least one more.
No, I think that was it. Because I think it was March, May, July, or something like that. But, yeah.
The reason why those cards hold a special place with me is because whenever I decided to kind of like reinvent myself in 2012 and start working for Indie Pro Entertainment and everything, and start traveling with certain guys and everything, like with the guys who would actually push me in the right direction, whenever Shane was actually being more like very open to the idea of me working those Hedgesville shows the CPW was running, and then I got to work Big Bear Lake. That was just a good string of events for me. And it's working for people like Shane is what get you to the next level.
Yeah, you have to humble yourself enough to know that you do not know everything.
Yeah.
And if you can learn a lot from working those cards and from working in a system, because I think one of the big problems with independent wrestling today is that everybody already knows. Like, I don't need to go learn, booking is just this ethereal thing. There's no concepts, there's no this or that. It's one person's idea. People believe stuff like that, and guys.
And you got plenty of guys who want to book their own shit.
Yeah.
So whenever they come to a CPW, they get humbled,
Yeah, because, and it's also, if you talk to a lot of the young guys, they always talk about how harmonious those locker rooms are.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that, bullshit will not be tolerated, because it's,
There's no going into business for yourself up there.
and it's, you get to, you really get to work on an intimate level with people because it's a small, tight crew, because there are only, I mean, geez, I don't think there's ever really more than 5 matches on any of those one cards.
Right.
But because of that, you have an environment where people are hot and guys have time.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I watch a lot of these matches on the independents and stuff, and I'm just like, man, if they could have just taken what they did and just kind of elongated it a little bit, then it would have been, it would just be that much better. Because, people don't want to give things time. As soon as, like, one thing's done, okay, well, we've got to do the next thing. Let's get up and go, and I'm not a big fan of that style of work because you're taking twice the amount of bumps and you're selling half as much.
And I love being on cards with those guys because if you're not at a Shadows card and you're at, if you're at like a Phoenix Pro, if you're anywhere else, and you see these guys who come in, do these spot matches, and yet they got the crowd to rise up a little bit. You see that kind of stuff. But then whenever a guy like myself or you come out, and we actually work, and we're telling a story, and we're selling, we're working, you get 10 times the reaction that they get.
Yeah, and I mean,
way less beat up.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think that I'm the 21st century whiz kid or anything when it comes to working, but I know that as a small guy, I like to try. It's harder when you're a small guy to make your bumps mean more when everyone wants to bump you. Mm-hmm. So that's why every so often, you can do these little things that nobody ever sees. Nobody ever sees guys getting tangled up into the ropes or stumbling back into the corner or, this or that. Not everything needs to be the world's biggest bump.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And that's if I could send that message to anybody who is in a training school right now or anything like that, I want you to know that it is perfectly okay if you don't try to have like the carbon copy match, like the same match every time. Like switch up your selling, switch up where you're feeding to, like if me and Simon are working, he's going to be feeding me his arm. If I'm working heel, if there's an opportunity during the shine where I can feed myself into something different for him to do, we're going to do stuff like that. But I don't know. That's why, like, whenever people get out of training school, they have like this specific way that like they got to do stuff, and that just comes with experience, like actually working more matches, I guess.
It's hard because you're only ever going to get so good working the same people.
Yep.
And that's another part.
Now, okay, that's my question to you. Whenever you do get to go to like whenever me and you were going down to Virginia and stuff like that, mm-hmm. Whenever we get to go like really far away and be in a locker room full of a bunch of dudes we don't know, isn't that a high? Don't you like do you like that or is that like an added pressure that you don't like or
not knowing anyone?
Yeah, man. Nobody knows who you are. You get to go out and work some guy you don't know. Dude, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the thing. You have to be able to do it. I guess, I'm just not affected by it because, like, usually, like, it's been a long time since I've gone somewhere that I haven't known at least, like, one guy on at least some kind of acquaintance, like, level, because, like, I haven't, like, worked on a ton of cards, but I've been to so many more where I've worked out and hung out with people and watched entire cards, and that's the other thing about independence that drives me crazy. I hate how nobody wants to watch the matches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because like you have to be able. Nobody wants to watch these things as a whole. Everyone wants to just kind of hang out and talk, but you watch the matches and what's getting over, what's not getting over. You can look at a guy and be like, okay, this is how he's working, because that way the next month if you come back and you got to work this guy you've never worked with before, you're like, oh yeah, I saw you do this thing, and can you do it again? It's stuff like that. It's I don't know. I feel like too much of wrestling is so self-absorbed now.
Like, what do you mean? Self-absorbed. Explain that.
It's all about my match, my spots,
right.
My opponent. what I did on this thing. Nobody wants to kind of look at it and be like, oh, okay, this guy's doing this, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what,
can we at least can we build the event? Can we work up to the main and then
but see, that's the problem with, phrases like steal the show.
yeah.
Okay, so because the idea behind it is that, oh, if those guys in the main event can't do something different and new to top us, they shouldn't be in the main event. Instead of thinking, hey, we build to this thing, because it's
Now there are some companies where they ask you of that.
oh, there are,
And
I mean,
I hate that. And that just red flag in my head. I'm like, I'm not going to be here much longer. And I'm not, I don't work for those companies.
I mean, I guess there's really no right or wrong.
Yeah.
But there is a more logical way to do it. But again, how do you build something when the only thing you're worried about is what do I do? How many spots can I do? How good do I look tonight? You can't.
Right.
It's just, I don't know. I always like things that build. If you watch, some of the best cards in history, you watch WrestleMania. WrestleMania builds. Minus that short step down that's normally in between, main events. WrestleMania builds in intensity. That because the main event should be the most important and the focus should be on the main event because in theory, the whole reason people are there is to see the main event.
Right. And that's what you want, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, why wouldn't you? Because the main event should be this is the best thing we have tonight. This is why you spent your hard-earned money, was to see this main event. These two guys are they're either squaring off for the first time or the second time or whatever. They have some kind of issue.
Yes.
But if you're not selling based on your main events, what are you selling on? You know what I mean?
That's exactly why when we go to these companies, if you're not trying to steal the show, you need to go get trained more. If if you don't think that you can top the last match, you need to go train more.
I have enough confidence in my abilities to be able to work a solid match and get over without having to do 1,000 lariats and brain busters.
Right.
You know what I mean? And because more importantly, I find and one of the ridiculous things about wrestling is you can if people don't watch matches, if I went out and worked and you didn't watch and you came back and went, how'd it go? I could try and convince you that I did steal the show, and I'll be like, brother, it was great. They were popping for everything. When I did the thing, I hit him with the gimmick. Hey, would you believe what that old lady said to me? But I'm going to tell you this, and you didn't watch it. So what are you going to think? Man, that Simon, he's a good worker. He knows what he's doing.
I need to get him booked where I work.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you have to be able to be honest with yourself.
Now, as far as you finding an interest in wrestling, when did that happen?
I don't know.
Ever since you can remember?
Well,
I'm the same way. I don't really know either.
Well, look, man, I know it's a cliche. I hate to say oh, wrestling is life, blah blah blah. But my dad's been wrestling since I was, since slightly before I was born, I think. But for the most part, man, I don't know what life without wrestling looks like. I missed a fair amount of my 6th grade year because I had bad grades and I couldn't go. But outside of that, I've always been around wrestling. Even if I wasn't watching what was on TV, I was around independent wrestling.
So that was like a punishment for you. If you don't do good in school, you don't get to go to the wrestling.
Yeah, because, my dad he'd just take me and we'd go on these rides and we'd talk about wrestling and then, I'd sit there and I'd watch the entire card and then after a while, once I got old enough, I started selling gimmicks, a little of this and that, he'd give me a couple bucks, but, when you're at the gimmick table, you can watch.
Who is the worker that got you over on it?
On wrestling?
Yeah.
I don't know. My dad.
Okay, so your dad, he was having matches where you were on the edge of your seat at those cards?
Yeah. I enjoyed watching my dad work.
Well, that's pretty cool.
When I was a kid, I really loved Sabu.
Okay.
because it was something different and crazy. And I liked Bret Hart, you know. I liked Sting a lot, you know. But those are the first guys in wrestling that I was really like, oh. But again, I mean, it's different because I was seeing my dad work, so there were guys like Bobby Keller and what was his name, Muhammad Kane,
Right.
and Gino as the Combat Kid, so and the Cremator, But see, that was the thing is that when a lot of people, when a lot of people are 6 and 7 and they're watching wrestling on TV, that is their idea of what wrestling is. But I'm watching that, and then I'm going to the Cadillac Club on Sunday evenings, and I'm seeing Mark Mess versus the Cremator. So wrestling has, it's an entirely different perspective on it and what wrestling is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like people like Diablos Macabre and Doc Hollywood, like.
So like as much as you liked like TV wrestling and everything, you loved just as much the characters and gimmicks that you saw go into your dad's events.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was a kid who loved wrestling.
Right.
And to me,
ICP in wrestling, man, that's you.
Some of those independent Jesus. Some of those, like, I mean, because those independent cards, like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know, I don't know who some of these guys are, but that guy looks pretty big and scary, and he's getting ready to wrestle this guy. Or, hey, look, it's Greg Valentine and Tito Santana,
And that's exciting.
The honky tonk man, it was, because it was live. It was in front of me. You know what I mean? Like, it's different because...
Doesn't it upset you now, like you got to see all that now whenever you sit down at, like, a live event? Like, like, if you're not booked or something like that and you get to sit and watch the show, it's a different, we don't watch it the same as we used to.
Yeah. I mean...
I'm like, what the fuck did he do that for? Okay, that was a good finish.
No, I still get excited sometimes for admittedly the wrong reason, like the time that, like the time Steve Starks fell off the top rope. And
sure.
I started...
Yeah, and you could hear you laughing in the background on that clip.
I sound like a hysterical woman. I'm rolling around on the stage because, like, I had asked Barks to watch my match that day, and Barks was like, hey, brother, I would, but I'm doing this surprise run-in on Rob. And I was like, okay. I was like, you could,
it's one of those things. You want to check it out.
Yeah. I was like, that's fine. So I'm sitting there, and I'm up on the stage, and I'm watching.
I was sitting very close to you at this time.
And TJ, like, super kicks Rob or whatever, and he goes down, and Parks runs
Here
out,
it comes,
and
yes.
And he climbs on the top rope, and he starts wobbling, and he falls, and there go his sneakers.
And this is a 300-pound guy.
Yeah.
Plummeting to the ground.
He just held his hat in front of his face the whole way back. It was great because, you know what, if you wanted to look like you were, if you wanted to look like you were the proverbial Mark hitting the ring, there you go. Yeah. You looked like it.
That's so funny.
But I mean, that's one of those things about, independent wrestling. Like, when I was a kid, I spent years telling people about this spot, but there was this guy named the Juggernaut.
The Juggernaut, very creative.
Now, yeah, he was like this big fat white dude who wore tie-dye, and like, when I was a kid, I didn't understand that apparently, like, he had like a stoner gimmick.
Okay.
I just thought he was a guy wearing, psychedelic colors and,
peace and love, man. Yeah.
He's eating chips, and when I was a kid, I was like, I like chips. Everybody likes chips.
Yeah.
He's just having a
perfect
snack
baby
before
face.
He works. And there was a battle royal, and the chips were in his back pocket, and somebody punches him. And, like, he staggers back, and the chips fall out of his pocket, and he runs into the corner. Guy moves, he hits the splash, bam, he turns around, and he's backing up, and he steps on the chips, and he slips, and just takes this beautiful back bump, and the dude jumps on top of him. 1, 2, 3. It was great. I loved it, because I didn't see it coming, And I to this day, I think he might have accidentally knocked himself unconscious. I don't know.
Now, you used to book fantasy cards back in the day, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid.
Now, and now that you're an adult and you've had your own company And you still, and, you know, it's still around, WVW.
Such as it is.
Yes. Now, you know, it's the kind of company that runs summer events, it seems. So the next summer, are you running again next summer?
Yeah, you can ask Brandon.
Okay. So WVW will probably still be around.
Anybody who wants to see the return of WVW while I'm gone needs to go ahead and hit up Brandon Arnett. You know.
So how long's this thing that you're going out to Cincinnati for?
It's indefinite. I'll be back at some point, but you don't want to be that guy who's like, yeah, I'll be back in 4 months, and then like 10 years later, it's like, oh, hey guys, here I am.
Right.
Like, I mean, I still intend to come back. Like, I'm still gonna work those Big Bear cards.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's only like.
Well, I'm gonna have to get booked on those.
It's only like 4 hours.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, really?
From Cincinnati to Big
not
Bear.
bad.
It's really not.
So I think that we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with part 2, where we're going to dive into some. Well, I'm not. You know, you just tune into part 2. That's all I'm going to tell you.